Chosen one, do you feel it? That stirring in your heart, that quiet whisper you've been trying to dismiss. That, my friend, is not coincidence. God is speaking to you, and right now, at this very moment, you are being called to pay attention, because ignoring this sign could cost you the destiny He has laid out for your life. You were chosen, not by chance, not by luck, but by divine purpose. And God is reaching out to you in a way that demands your focus, your faith, and your obedience. The world is loud, full of distractions, and full of voices trying to pull you away from the path that God has prepared for you. But when God sends a sign, it is unmistakable. It might be subtle at first, a dream that lingers longer than it should, a verse that keeps repeating itself in your mind, an unexpected encounter that changes the way you see your life. But the chosen cannot ignore these moments. They are beacons, guiding lights that illuminate the path to your divine calling. Right now I need you to pause. Yes, pause this video, take a deep breath, and acknowledge what God is trying to show you. If you feel the weight of this message, don't just watch and scroll. Comment below, "I am ready," as a declaration of your faith, and hit that like button to honor the one who has chosen you. Your engagement not only spreads this message to others who need it, but also signals to heaven that you are standing up as the chosen one in this moment. Super thanks to everyone who takes this step. You are not just a viewer. You are part of a movement of awakening. Consider this carefully. The enemy knows your destiny. He will do everything to keep you blind, distracted, and doubting. But God's signs pierce through the darkness. They are meant to wake you up, to shake you from complacency, to stir your spirit into action. Do not ignore what is happening around you. That sense of urgency you feel, that is your cue. That is God's timing. Your life is on the edge of a breakthrough, a revelation, and a transformation. And it begins the moment you choose to acknowledge it. Remember, being chosen is not just a title, it is a responsibility. It is the sacred duty to rise above fear, doubt, and distraction, to listen intently, and to step into the plans God has crafted for you. This is your moment. This is your call. Do not allow it to pass unnoticed. The next sections will guide you deeper into understanding what this sign means, how it connects to your destiny, and why your response will shape your spiritual journey forever. Now that you've felt the urgency, the question becomes clear. How exactly is God speaking to you? Because make no mistake, He is speaking. The issue has never been His silence. The issue has always been our awareness. Chosen one, God does not communicate the way the world does. He doesn't shout over the noise. He doesn't force His voice into your life. Instead, He speaks in ways that require spiritual sensitivity, because being chosen means you are meant to discern, not just hear. Think about this. Throughout Scripture, God rarely spoke in obvious, dramatic ways to everyone. More often, His voice came in subtle, powerful moments. A burning bush that only one man noticed, a whisper in the wilderness, a dream in the middle of the night, a sudden conviction that could not be ignored. These were not accidents. These were divine signals, specifically recognized by those who were chosen. And that's where you come in. You've been experiencing things you can't fully explain. Patterns that feel too precise to be random. Delays that don't make sense. Doors closing when you were sure they would open. Or even a deep, persistent feeling that something bigger is happening in your life. These are not setbacks. These are signals. God often speaks through disruption before He speaks through direction. When your plans fall apart, it is not always loss. It is often protection. When people walk away from your life, it is not always rejection. It is often redirection. When you feel uncomfortable in places you once felt at home, it is not confusion. It is your spirit recognizing that you've outgrown where you are. Chosen one, this is how God separates you from what cannot go with you into your next level. But here's the part many people miss. God also speaks through repetition. If you keep seeing the same message, hearing the same truth, feeling the same pull, pay attention. That is not coincidence. That is confirmation. God will repeat Himself until you respond. Not because He is trying to pressure you, but because He knows what is at stake if you ignore Him. And let's be honest, ignoring the sign is easy. It's easy to explain it away. Easy to call it stress, overthinking, or coincidence. Easy to delay action and say, I'll deal with it later. But later is where many destinies are lost. Later is where clarity fades. Later is where fear grows stronger than faith. That's why this moment matters. You are not just hearing this message for entertainment. You are hearing it because something in your spirit is being activated. Something is waking up inside of you, pushing you to look deeper, to question more, to seek God in a way you never have before. And here's the truth: the more chosen you are, the less obvious the path will be. Because God is not just leading you to a destination, He is developing your spiritual vision along the way. He wants you to recognize His voice without needing constant confirmation. He wants you to trust Him, even when the signs don't make immediate sense. So if you've been feeling uncertain, confused, or even overwhelmed, don't panic. That feeling is often the very evidence that God is working. Chosen one, here is where many people get it wrong. They expect God's signs to always feel peaceful, clear, and reassuring. They believe that if something is from God, it will come wrapped in comfort, ease, and immediate understanding. But the truth is, some of the most powerful signs from God will unsettle you before they ever strengthen you. Let that sink in. Because if you've been feeling discomfort lately, if something in your life feels off, uncertain, or even shaken, that may not be a problem. That may be the sign you've been praying for. God will often use discomfort to break you out of places you've become too comfortable in, places that are no longer aligned with your purpose, people who can no longer go where you are going, mindsets that once protected you but are now limiting you. And instead of gently nudging you, sometimes He allows a deep inner disturbance to rise within you, a feeling you cannot ignore, a restlessness that keeps you up at night. A quiet voice that keeps asking, is this really where you're supposed to be? That is not anxiety without purpose. That is spiritual awareness awakening inside of you. Chosen one, growth will always feel unfamiliar before it feels right. When God is shifting your life, He doesn't just change your circumstances, He changes you. And that process can feel uncomfortable because it requires letting go. Letting go of what's familiar, letting go of control. Letting go of versions of yourself that no longer match who you are becoming. And here's the key. The enemy will try to convince you that this discomfort means something is wrong. He will whisper, go back to what feels safe. He will say, this is too hard. He will try to make you believe that peace only exists in your past. But that is deception, because sometimes what feels safe is actually where your growth has stopped. And what feels uncomfortable is exactly where your purpose begins. Think about it. Every major shift in your life likely came with discomfort first. Every breakthrough required a moment where you didn't fully understand what was happening. That's because God was stretching you beyond your current level of thinking, faith, and identity. And stretching is never comfortable, but it is necessary. Chosen one, if God only spoke through comfort, you would never move. You would stay in the same place, surrounded by the same limitations, living far below the purpose placed inside of you. So instead, He uses discomfort as a signal, a spiritual alarm, a wake-up call that something must change. The question is, will you listen? Because ignoring uncomfortable signs is one of the fastest ways to delay your destiny. You stay where you've outgrown. You tolerate what no longer aligns. You silence the very voice that is trying to guide you forward. But when you lean into that discomfort, when you ask God, what are you trying to show me? Everything begins to shift. Clarity starts to form. Direction starts to appear. And what once felt confusing begins to make sense. So don't run from the discomfort. Examine it. Pray over it. Sit with it. Because hidden inside that uneasy feeling may be the very instruction that leads you into your next level. Chosen one, it's time to confront a truth that will shift how you see everything around you. What you've been experiencing is not random. Those moments that made you stop and think, what was that? Those patterns that keep repeating in your life. Those unexpected shifts that came out of nowhere. They are not accidents. They are signals. God does not operate in chaos. He operates in purpose. Every sign He sends carries intention, direction, and meaning. But the challenge is this. Most people are too distracted, too busy, or too doubtful to recognize what is right in front of them. But you're different because something brought you here. Something made you pause and listen. And that alone tells you that your spirit is already picking up on something deeper. Let's break this down clearly. One of the most common ways God sends signs is through divine interruptions. You had a plan. You were moving in a certain direction. Everything seemed set. And then suddenly, something changed. A delay, a cancellation, a door closed that you were sure would open. At first it feels frustrating, confusing, even unfair. But chosen one, What if that interruption was actually protection? What if God saw something ahead that you couldn't see? Sometimes, the very thing you're upset about is the very thing that saved you. Another powerful sign comes through unexpected alignment. Moments where things just fall into place too perfectly to ignore. You meet the right person at the right time. You hear the exact message you needed, exactly when you needed it. Opportunities appear out of nowhere, confirming something you've been feeling deep inside. That is not luck. That is divine orchestration. God is aligning things behind the scenes, moving pieces in ways you don't fully understand yet. And when those alignments happen, they are meant to catch your attention. They are God's way of saying, you're on the right path. Keep going. But here's another sign that many chosen ones struggle with. The sign of deep inner knowing. No voice, no visible sign, no dramatic moment. Just a strong, unshakable feeling inside you. A knowing that something is right or something is wrong. And even when you try to ignore it, it doesn't go away. Chosen one, that is not your imagination. That is discernment. That is God placing awareness inside of you, so you don't rely only on what you see, but also on what you sense. And here's where it becomes serious. When you ignore these signs long enough, they don't disappear. They intensify. The feeling gets stronger. The situations become more obvious. The discomfort increases, not because God is trying to overwhelm you, but because He is trying to get your attention before it's too late. Because every sign carries a decision. Will you listen? Or will you delay? Will you trust? Or will you doubt? Chosen one, your life is not just happening to you. It is being guided, directed, protected, even in ways you don't fully understand yet. And once you start recognizing these signs for what they truly are, everything changes. You stop seeing obstacles as setbacks and start seeing them as instructions. You stop questioning every delay and start trusting divine timing. You stop feeling lost and start realizing you are being led. Chosen one, this is the part that tests you the most. You receive the sign. You feel it deeply. It's clear, undeniable, even powerful in the moment. But then everything goes quiet. No confirmation, no clear next step, no immediate outcome, just silence. And in that silence, questions begin to rise. Did I misunderstand? Was that really from God? Why would He show me something and then say nothing? This is where many people lose their way. Not because they didn't receive a sign, but because they didn't understand what comes after it. Let's make this clear. God's silence is never His absence. When God gives you a sign and then becomes quiet, He is not stepping away from you. He is watching how you respond. He is allowing your faith to develop beyond feelings and into trust. Because anyone can believe when the sign is fresh. Anyone can feel confident when the message is clear. But chosen ones are not called to walk by constant reassurance. They are called to walk by faith. Silence is where faith is proven. Think about it. If God explained every step, confirmed every move, and removed every doubt, there would be no need for trust. You would simply follow instructions like a script. But your journey is not meant to be mechanical. It's meant to be transformational. God is not just leading you somewhere. He is building something within you. And that process requires moments where you have to move forward without hearing His voice again. This is where discipline replaces emotion. Because in the silence, your feelings will try to take over. Doubt will get louder. Fear will try to convince you to turn back. You'll be tempted to abandon what God showed you simply because you no longer feel the same intensity. But chosen one, the sign was not meant to be repeated. It was meant to be remembered. God already spoke. Now He's watching to see if you will act. And here's something deeper you need to understand. Silence often means preparation is happening behind the scenes. Just because you don't see movement doesn't mean nothing is happening. God is aligning people, shifting circumstances, and removing obstacles that you may never even know existed. But this kind of work doesn't happen instantly, and it doesn't always happen visibly. So while you're waiting, heaven is working. While you're questioning, things are being arranged in your favor. But if you allow doubt to pull you away too soon, you can step out of alignment with what God is building. That's why patience is not passive, it's active trust. It's waking up every day and choosing to believe that what God showed you still matters, even if you don't see results yet. It's continuing to move with intention, even when you don't have all the answers. Chosen one, this is where your spiritual maturity grows. Not in the moment of the sign, but in the moment after it. So if you feel like God has gone quiet in your life, don't panic. Don't assume you've been abandoned. Instead, ask yourself a better question. Am I still standing on what He already showed me? Because if the answer is yes, then you are exactly where you need to be. Chosen one, everything now comes down to this moment. Your response, not the sign itself, not the timing, not even the silence that followed, but how you respond. Because here's the truth most people never realize. God can place a calling on your life, send you clear signs and even open doors. But if your response is hesitation, fear, or disobedience, you can delay what was meant to elevate you. Let that settle in. Your destiny is not just discovered, it is responded to. Every sign you've received up to this point has been an invitation, an opportunity to move, to shift, to act in alignment with what God is revealing to you. But invitations require acceptance, and acceptance requires action. This is where many chosen ones struggle. You feel the pull. You sense the direction. You even know deep down what needs to change. But then comes the internal battle. What if I'm wrong? What if I fail? What will people think? What if I'm not ready? And just like that, hesitation steps in. Chosen one, hesitation is one of the enemy's most subtle weapons. Not because it stops you immediately, but because it delays you just enough to create distance between you and what God is trying to do in your life. And the longer you wait, the easier it becomes to stay where you are. But let's be clear, partial obedience is still disobedience. You cannot say you trust God while continuously ignoring what He has already shown you. You cannot ask for clarity while refusing to act on the clarity you've already received. At some point, faith requires movement, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's uncertain. Even when you don't have all the answers, because obedience is not about having full understanding. It's about having enough trust to take the next step. And here's something powerful you need to remember. God rarely shows you the entire path. He gives you just enough light for the next step. Why? Because He wants you to walk with Him, not ahead of Him. So when you delay your response, you're not just pausing progress, you're stepping out of alignment with divine timing. And timing matters more than you think. There are moments in life where obedience unlocks doors that hesitation cannot reopen the same way. Opportunities shift, seasons change, people move. But when you respond in faith, you position yourself exactly where you need to be, exactly when you need to be there. Chosen one, your life is not meant to be lived on standby. You were not chosen to overthink your calling. You were chosen to step into it. That doesn't mean you won't feel fear. It doesn't mean everything will be clear. But it does mean you decide that your trust in God is greater than your fear of the unknown. So ask yourself honestly, what have you been delaying? What sign have you been trying to ignore? What step have you been avoiding, even though you know it's time? Because right now, your answer to those questions is shaping your future. This is not about pressure, it's about awareness. The moment you choose to respond, things begin to shift. Doors open, direction becomes clearer, confidence grows. Not because everything changes instantly, but because you have aligned yourself with what God is doing. Chosen one, if you've made it this far, understand something clearly. This message was not random, and neither is your life. Everything you've felt, everything you've questioned, every sign you've wrestled with, it has all been leading to this realization. You were chosen on purpose for a purpose, and this moment right now is part of that design. Not yesterday, not someday in the future, right now. Because God does not reveal without intention. He does not show you signs just to leave you confused. He reveals because He is calling you higher. He is calling you to step out of the ordinary, out of the comfortable, and into alignment with something greater than yourself. And now you know the signs are real. You know the silence had a purpose. You know the discomfort was not meant to break you, but to shift you. You know your response is what determines what happens next. So the question is no longer, is God speaking to me? The question is, what are you going to do about it? Because awareness without action changes nothing. Chosen one, this is where your identity becomes real. Not in what you say, not in what you feel, but in what you choose. Will you continue to doubt what has already been confirmed in your spirit? Or will you finally stand up and say, God, I trust you, even here, even now, even without having everything figured out. Because that decision, that moment of surrender, is where everything begins to transform. And understand this, walking in your calling will not always be easy. There will be moments when you feel alone, moments when people don't understand you, moments when the path feels uncertain. But none of that means you are on the wrong path. In fact, many times, it's confirmation that you are walking a path that not everyone is meant to understand. You were not chosen to blend in. You were chosen to be set apart. That means thinking differently, moving differently, trusting God when others don't, holding on when others give up, seeing purpose where others only see problems. And yes, it requires strength, but that strength has already been placed inside of you. You wouldn't be here, feeling this, recognizing this, if you weren't capable of carrying what's ahead. So don't shrink back now. Don't return to old patterns just because they feel familiar. Don't silence your spirit just because the world is loud. And don't ignore what God has made clear to you in this moment. Instead, step forward, even if it's one small step, even if it feels uncertain. Because movement activates what God has already prepared. Chosen one, this is your confirmation. You are not lost. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are being led. And everything from this point forward depends on whether you choose to walk in that truth. So take this moment seriously. Carry this message with you. Let it guide your decisions, your mindset, and your next steps. Because one day, you will look back at this exact moment and realize, this is where everything began to change. Now go forward and walk like the chosen one you were always meant to be.